King Arthur is that true debt buyers can never provide proof they own the debt. So I'll answer it this way. I would say no, that's not true. In other words, they can prove they bought the debt if they really bought it. Now, what I have found from defending people for, I mean, I can't even tell you, thousands of cases by debt buyers, that whether they can prove, in my experience, they will not prove, or they're unable to prove because they don't understand the way the rules of evidence work in court. And so, I'll have this was probably a $35,000 debt buyer suit. And so I go to trial, and I'm not the plaintiff, I'm the defendant. And so the judge says to the plaintiff, okay, call your first witness. And the lawyer says, we call by affidavit Susie Smith, and she will prove that we own the debt and John's client owes the debt. And I look at the judge, say, Judge, I object. Affidavits, that's hearsay. They can't come into evidence. And the lawyer's like, but it's a sworn statement. It's an affidavit. Look, here's the notary. And the judge is just kind of up there like, oh, this is embarrassing. And he's like, you can't put an affidavit in on a $35,000 case. This is not small claims court. And most small claims judges won't let them either. So my point is, they either don't own the debt, or they're incapable of proving it. Or let's say they know how to prove it. We demand that they put in the purchase agreement. Okay, so you've got Capital One and LVNV. Well, there's a contract where LVNV buys it from Capital One. That's called the purchase agreement. Well, they'll put in what's called the bill of sale. That's one piece of paper from the purchase agreement. So when they don't put in the purchase agreement, we say, Judge, there's no proof that they actually own it. There's just people talking about they own it, but there's no actual proof. So think about it this way. If we're in an argument over who owns the house at 123 Main Street, the judge doesn't want to hear us talking about, well, here's my Christmas card in front of the house. And you go, well, here's my Thanksgiving card in front of the house. They're like, where's the deed? The deed's the proof. We don't want to hear people talk about it. Let's show it. And that's called sometimes the best evidence rule. Okay. So if a case involves a dispute over a marriage, were these two people really married? Well, let's stop talking about it, and here's the marriage certificate. Okay. So a lot of times they're just unwilling to produce those documents, and they say it's because of super confident. That's not why. Okay. Actually, you can find most of these online. The reason is, generally in that purchase agreement, the original creditor says, we make no representations, zero, zilch, nothing, no representations that any of the information we're selling you is remotely accurate. Now, why did they do that? Because they don't want that debt buyer coming back on them and saying, hey, these 5 accounts you sold us and turned out you had the wrong balance on there. Capital One or Chase or whoever is saying, you know what, guys? Buy it at your own risk. We're selling it to you as is. No representation. Anything's accurate. Well, now the debt buyer comes into court, and they've got all these papers, and they say, Judge, this is the gospel truth. Well, it's kind of hard to say that when the purchase agreement says, yeah, we make no claims any of this stuff is remotely accurate. Some of the purchase agreements tell the debt buyers, you cannot sue. Obviously, they don't want to put that into evidence. So it's not true that they can never prove it. I just haven't seen them prove it. Now, they swear to me they prove it all the time. Well, they don't prove it in my cases. Maybe I'm just lucky. Okay. But so I tell you that to say you have a chance to beat them, but don't take that the wrong way and say, oh, well, they're not even going to make an effort, or, they're not even going to show up. I mean, you've got to be prepared to beat them. And the more prepared you are, the better you'll be. What's the old expression? The more you sweat and practice, the less you bleed in battle. So be prepared for that.